Hey everyone, so excited to be here today to introduce you to Allie. This is episode 21 of Outside the Studio. Allie is somebody who's near and dear to my heart, as you will soon see, and I'm so excited for you to get to know her a little bit more. She's an abstract artist. She's a teacher of yoga nidra, which we'll go into detail about, and most of you have heard me talk about it before, but we go into a little bit more detail about what it is and Allie's experience with it and how she teaches. She also teaches yoga, asana, and meditation. She was born and raised in New York. So you get to hear her sweet little accent, her East Coast accent, which I love listening to. And she came here to the Pacific Northwest because it vibed more with her desire to be in a more sanguine environment. Not that New York isn't fun and amazing, but yeah. So what else? Allie, she found yoga in college. She, like most of us, we find yoga, I think, because of the physical aspect of it. It's what draws us in first. It's the enticing, looking and feeling better in the body. And then soon, just like Allie, we discover that there's so much more to yoga. We start to peel back the layers of, in Allie's words, our own understanding and get curious and discover what lies below the surface. So she's really passionate about tuning into that internal landscape for answers and validation. So now she gets to marry these two loves of hers, art and reconnecting to the self through yoga, and to help people deepen their awareness and navigate healing practices through yoga, through nidra, and through the creative works of artistry. And so 3 takeaways from this episode that I found were pretty cool. And maybe you'll come up with your own. For me, were this idea of accessing pure rest and discovering your heart's deepest desires through yoga nidra. So that's number 1. Number 2, this really interesting intersection between memory experience, having chronic migraines, and the creation of art. So Allie will go into detail on those 3 things and how they all kind of blend together. And then finally, learning, which is always such an inspiration to me, learning what words of wisdom people live by. Allie will share hers. And then what she's reading to stay inspired. So authors that she looks to create some sort of sense of wisdom and turning inward. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy my conversation with Allie.
What I'm going to say is, here's what I know about you. Fill in the gaps and add color where you want to. You're an amazing artist. If you were watching this on YouTube, we get to see this beautiful artwork in the background, which I want you to talk about in a minute. I also have one of her pieces in my home, which I love. And you are a yogi. You are a student. You are a teacher of asana, of nidra, and many other things that I'm sure I'm missing. We have similar teachers. Our teachers are like from the same yogic tree that kind of branched off into their own schools of yoga. So Richard Freeman, I believe, is...
Yes, my teacher, Michelle Lowe's teacher as well.
Yeah. Yes. And that's kind of my teacher's teacher is Rod Stryker. So they came from the same basic like parent yogi and then branched off into their own schools. You recently bought, I'm sitting in Allie's basement. It is, I'm not kidding you guys, the most beautiful home in Portland, and it is across the street from a park.
Yeah.
Like how does this even happen? I don't know. I looked for a house in Portland about 6 years ago, and there was nothing. you know, and this is 6 years ago when things were still affordable in Portland.
Yeah, COVID,
beginning of the
beginning of the pandemic, we were living in, my fiance and I were living in a very, very small, which you've been to.
Yes.
Small apartment. We were like on top of each other. There was no room for anything. And we were like, okay, I guess we should start looking for a house. And then we were kind of hunting, kind of not. It was like kind of this wavy thing. And then we started putting in offers. Everything got declined. Like everything was just like, no. So we raised our budget a little bit, even though we didn't really want to. But then we found this house, and it was right across the street from a park. So it was perfect because it was nature, but also a home and a yard for the first time ever. I'm from New York, so I've just been living in very, very small apartments. So this is the first time I've actually had a room to teach in, a room to practice in, a separate space to make art in. So yeah, we kind of just slid in at the right time where prices just dropped a lot at the beginning of COVID. Yeah. So yeah, we've been in this house since the end of May. So it feels nice.
Wow. So basically wait until the next pandemic, right before the next pandemic happens, wait until then to buy your house.
And then you're good. Yeah.
Can we talk about, so you have a style of art that, to me, when I look at it, and I know nothing about the art world, but to me, when I look at it, I think abstract magical realism. And like, you can interpret this in a whole different, way, but I see like watercolors, but I also see defined lines, and it is magical and beautiful, and I just want to dive in and swim around in that.
Me too. So yeah, it's interesting because I started out with photography. I went to school for photography, graduated in 2014, but I always focused on abstract work. I've always been interested in the non-representational, so that you can kind of dive in and explore your own meaning, which is, if I had to go back to that one sentence of defining myself, which I nailed down for you.
I want to hear it.
Let's see.
Yes,
if I can get through it. Okay. So I'm endlessly exploring self-study through the practices of yoga, art, meditation, nidra, all the things. So it's like this ongoing process through creation.
Oh, that's good.
Thanks.
Bam. She nailed it. So this is something I anyone who's listening or watching, I urge you to try defining who you are in one sentence.
It's really hard. I was telling her, I was like, you asked me that, and I thought about it for like 5 days. Like I was like, who am I? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then you go into an existential crisis.
Just gonna say that. I'm like, I was having existential anxiety about my life. I was like, I don't know who I am. Yeah. Oh my God, I'm a lot of different things.
Exactly. Right?
It makes it so hard.
I got that question from, it was part of a workshop with Anne Klein, Peace in a Time of Pandemic. And that was a question she asked me, and I was like, I went on and on for like 3 minutes about who I was. So well done.
Thank you. Yeah. So I create in camera, when I'm using photography, I create these meditative color fields where they kind of just look like color field paintings, like Mark Rothko or something. And then sometimes I do more mixed media. And then over the past few years, I started diving into painting, doing more like alcohol ink or acrylic, but of course still being my abstract self. So sometimes it turns out that it creates more of a realistic vibe to it, but it's not really intentional. So it's always just like allowing people to see what they see based on their own unique lens.
I love that. Yeah. And I wonder, do you ever have to interpret your art? Like if you had a show and you had to name it and explain, do people ask you like, well, what are you feeling? What are you trying to represent here? Do you have to think through that? Do you ever answer that?
That's a good question. I typically, and of course, I feel like, and I don't know if it's intentional or not, I try to keep it as open as possible. So I like to talk about my process, and I like to, because for me, it's about that internal landscape, both for myself as the artist and for the viewer. So when I'm writing an artist statement, I typically don't go into the works themselves individually unless like I'm at a show pre-pandemic and somebody asks a question. But I typically just talk about my intention behind creating the work itself. So, yeah.
And then do you name them? How would you name that?
Yeah, so this one in particular is a self-portrait, which again, like I didn't really know it was a self-portrait. So I have a show up in Portland. It's in a cafe. It's been up there for a while. groundwork in Northwest Portland.
I'm stopping by that. That's like at the foot of Forest Park, right?
Yep.
Okay, I'm totally stopping by there.
So I have like huge canvases in there, and one of them sold. So I think there's only 3 in there now. But I like did this one and I hated it. I was like, I know. I didn't like it. I was like, this doesn't go. I don't know. So then I just kept it. I was like, oh, I'll probably like gesso over it and start again. Like I'll just do something else. And then I kept living with it. Like I think you should always live with your artwork. So I just started living with it, and I was like really looking at it one day, and I was like, this is me. I was like, this is me. I see like a bird who's kind of like guarded, but also like exploding with color, which for me, it's always like, it's easier to talk about feelings through color and through space and through art. It always has been for me, instead of through my voice, which I'm working through like another process, right? So I just felt, I was like, yeah, she's like looking over her shoulder, kind of like, I'm ready to come out, but not really. So over this like explosion of color. So I felt like it represented me in a really special way. So I just decided to hang it up in my space and live with it.
Yeah. That's interesting, because what I look at it, and I will definitely take a picture of this if that's okay with the artist,
of course.
Allie, and share it in show notes. But I see a face, like a profile of a face, kind of emerging from this cloud of color in the upper, I guess that would be right-hand corner if you're looking at it. Here I see flowers, so it's like a whole universe that this woman is emerging from.
Yeah.
So I love that you keep them interpretive.
Yeah, like art is fun. Like, yeah. The way I think about memory too, like that's what I make a lot of my work about, is like, I think that all of our experiences are just a collage of memories. So what you see and what I see and what everyone else sees is going to be so different based on how they view color, based on how they view saturation or certain shapes. So yeah, I really like that part of it.
So cool. And you said you got into mixed media. For those of us that are not hip to artist lingo, can you talk like me? I'm outing myself.
No.
What does mixed media mean?
So just using a lot of different techniques or a lot of different materials to create something. So, I wish I brought one downstairs. I'll take a picture and send one to you. But a lot of what I post now too, I'll take my photographs and then I print them out on another piece of paper, almost like it's kind of like a very wonky screen print. So I'll take a photo and print it out on a paper that doesn't dry, and then peel it, and like it transfers itself onto another piece of paper. So it's almost like a screen print, but done very poorly, but the process is pretty awesome. So then it kind of peels back the ink of the original image, so you're just left with imprints of that image.
Oh, that sounds
so
really cool.
I don't know where my phone is. Here it goes. I'll show you, and then we could maybe show everyone somehow.
Yes.
But these are
we will figure that out.
These like that.
Oh, that's so pretty. I love the colors.
Thank you. Yeah.
So this is an example of mixed media. Oh, I love that. I'm obsessed with this color. There's kind of like a palette of blush, coral, fuses into gold, and those are the colors that I'm
I'll send you that one.
I'll
send you that
right
one
now.
Yeah, it's because I'm always just trying to get after memory and experience, and how it's kind of always this emerging and disappearing kind of thing.
And is this something that has always been within you? Is this something you learned in art school? Where does that come from?
Yeah, so this was before art school. So I live with chronic aura migraines. So I think I had my first migraine in 8th grade. I must have been like 12 or 13. I don't know, how old are you in 8th grade? Maybe 13.
That sounds about right.
Right?
I remember.
I don't know, a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I was like in a chorus class, and my head was, like the pain is unbelievable, and like my whole entire body just got numb, and I just started seeing color, tunnel vision, and fainted on the floor.
Wow.
Yeah, and so since that moment, I've had aura migraines for a very long time. I'm 29 now, so a while. They're not as intense now, but I used to have to skip work, skip school. Sometimes they'd come when I was driving, so I'd have to pull over and just like rest or try and sleep for however long until I could drive again. But yeah, I was really intrigued by how I could see color and see just these different shapes emerging and disappearing in my mind, even though my eyes were closed. So it's like through the darkness, the light was still emerging and kind of shifting and changing. So that's how I was inspired to make all the work that I make now.
Wow.
Yeah, so turning pain into something beautiful, I guess.
So that's what an aura migraine is. It's like color that comes through as you close your eyes. And do you always faint?
I don't faint anymore.
Okay.
That was when I was younger and even through some of college too. But yeah, the auras, sometimes it's just like, and for a lot of people it's like bright white light, or it could be like peripheral. It'll start with, your eyes open. But I would always try to find like a dark space. When you have a migraine, it's like no noise, like even a scent would just make me puke. Like everything was so bad. So I would always try to find a dark room, and I'll never forget one time I had a bad migraine. I was living with my dad. I was like 18 and I had a bad one, and I was like, I'm going to go lay down, like close the lights, everything. He knew. He's like, okay, everything's quiet. And what I thought was like 3 minutes, like I was just laying in bed, what felt like I was watching like a movie of color and lights and shapes, and I was just so immersed. And I remember my dad like opened the door, and I thought it was only a few minutes, and he's like, are you doing okay? And I was like, yeah, like what time is it? Like it was only like a couple of minutes, and it was like 5 hours later or something. It was like you lose total track of time because you're so like wrapped up in the pain, but then also like in the other layers of what was going on. I was kind of like just immersed in this kind of like shadow color play situation that felt like 2 minutes. So it's like the distortion of time really inspired my art, as well as like color and shape and this like emerging and disappearing, which like yoga nidra and yoga, like all these other practices have just like intertwined.
Oh, this is so cool. And I love this idea of something that for a lot of people I think is such a negative experience, that it reminds me of this. There's a TED Talk, and I can't remember this woman's name, where she's describing her experience of having a stroke.
Oh,
do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I've watched it. Yes.
I'll have to put this in the show notes.
Yeah.
I'll have to find this, because it's, to me, that experience is like, and I think this was, way back in time, people that had these types of really intense physical experiences were considered like divine, and that was a doorway to divinity and your connection. And it sounds like that's what you're describing, is your connection to divinity or source or something else that is inspiring your creative life, your art and your yoga. Yeah. Can we talk about yoga now?
Yeah, please. Yes.
We can go back to art because I love it. But I feel like that's a good segue
Same thread
into, well, I think I want to start with nidra. I feel like nidra is one of those things that is, yoga is so popular right now in the West, and I think it's just going to continue to be more and more popular. But nidra, yoga nidra, is kind of this new facet or piece or practice that is being tacked onto our yoga asana, asana meaning posture. And it's a little bit harder to find, so I think it's worth time. I think it's worth spending some time describing. Yeah. And what is it if you haven't experienced it? Where can you find it? Allie teaches it.
I do.
And so, and I think you have like everything's online right now.
Everything's online right now. Right? Everything's online. So yoga nidra is, honestly, for me, it's been one of the most transformative practices. It directly translates to yogic sleep, although it's not about falling asleep. It's about deep relaxation. And it is it's a lying down body scan meditation where you're really hovering between wakefulness and sleep so that you can tap into the subconscious and unconscious portals of the mind. And in that place, you plant a rooted, like deep-seated intention. So beyond any layer of doubt, you can really tune into your heart's deepest desire and really access pure rest. So it's pretty special. And we can access pure rest when we move through the physical tensions in the body, the emotional layers of tension, and the mental tensions. So it really hits all the different layers, traveling external to internal. So someone who, again, is from New York and was such like a hustler, like vinyasa, ashtanga, working 3 jobs, 24/7, was constantly like, what's next? I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping, like, let's go. I found yoga nidra through my teacher, Michelle Lowe, and, you know, Rod Stryker and Richard Freeman, like her teachers too. And I just remember my first class, and I was so shocked by how I felt after. I felt both fully rested, but also totally inspired by just like the colors and the shapes and just like how it felt to have my body relaxing. Like, I realized how much I don't experience rest, because sleep doesn't equal rest. A lot of the times we're focusing on our dreams, or we're the mind chatter and all that stuff that's vying for your attention. But when you actually allow the time to rest, you also allow yourself to receive. So parasympathetic nervous system, we activate that rest and digest response in the body, hits every cell. So we really do a lot more, I think, when we actually slow down and rest instead of that constant push or action.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah.
So, there's so many directions I want to go. So I'll start with Sankalpa, because you touched on it, and I've tried to. So I've had a few different workshops trying to work with this idea of Sankalpa, and Sankalpa is planting that. So Allie just talked about going deep into the heart and accessing the seed of intention without any doubt, which is the idea of Sankalpa. It means basically it means like, well, there's a lot of different ways that you can define the word Sankalpa. It's 2 Sanskrit words, but I think of it as like, why am I drawing a blank on this? I've taught it so much and I've written about it so much.
Yeah, I know you do.
Kalpa comes from the root of kala, which means like time or law, so timeless. And san, I think, is truth, isn't it?
I think so.
I think it's truth. I will look at my notes.
I'm like on the spot now, so I'm like,
I know, right? I don't have my notes in front of me.
Me neither.
But it's this idea that you put it beautifully, that when you're able to peel away all of those external factors, the physical body, the conscious mind, the ego, the memory, and tap into the heart space, that an intention, a deep-seated intention, will come forth. And that attended to with consistency over time will yield a great reward. And actually, one thing that's specific to Sankalpa, this type of intention, is that it is meant to be practiced. And this is what I've learned. I'm curious to hear what you've learned. That it is meant to be practiced for a particular period of time. Like, for example, if you have a Sankalpa, and it might be just a saying, it might be like a sentence or two, that I will wake up every day and live my best life by eating really good, healthy food and going for an hour-long walk. Maybe that's my Sankalpa. So I decide that, like for 6 to 8 months, that's what I'm going to tell myself every day, and that's actually what I'm going to do every day. And this is Sankalpa in practice. So what would you add to that?
Yeah, so no, I love that. And it's true. So of course, consistency builds and rebuilds patterns and our habits, right? So, and when you plant the Sankalpa in your practice, it's in the subconscious and unconscious portals of the mind, right? So that helps to build that mental strength. So then when you're in deep rest, it starts to awaken those parts of your body and mind. So that way, when you're moving into the external world, your inner world's in alignment now. So then your actions start to reflect that more, because you're building that strength here, deeply in the heart and in the mind. So yes to consistency. I worked with a Sankalpa for a long time that I'm still working with, about living as an artist and a yoga teacher. And for me, who I was always out of alignment with work, I was always taking jobs that just didn't serve me because I thought I had to. It's like, it's never how you think it's going to look, but it's always like the energy you want to feel. Or at least I think that for me, it's more about like the energy you want to embody, whether it's like abundance or health or love or healing, instead of just like a direct goal. And maybe it is, but for me, I think it's always more about like an energetic alignment.
I love that. Yeah, that's important to remember. What are you asking for? Why are you asking for it?
Yeah.
And how does it make you feel? That whatever's, because you always have to peel back the layers, right? Like if your sankalpa is like, oh, I want to make $1 million. Well, why?
Why? Yeah, exactly. Like,
what is that going to bring you in
exactly.
the end?
Like you're still in a layer there. It's like,
yes.
like what's beneath that?
Keep
and
going.
I have a yoga, nidra, sankalpa, and journaling class on my website too.
Oh, awesome.
And it's so good because we go through like a meditation to uncover what that sankalpa is. So we do a little journaling, a little meditation, a little movement, and then the nidra. So that you have a little bit more time to explore what your sankalpa might be instead of just being in the moment. Because I remember when I first did it and I was like, oh, what is my sankalpa? I don't know. Oh, I wish I had more time, because then already you're moving on into the rest of the nidra, but I was still caught up in like figuring out what my sankalpa was. Mm-hmm. So for me, and like over analytical, thought process, I like having a little bit of time before I practice to connect to my heart's deepest desire. And if it doesn't come to you, that's fine too. You just let it kind of float into your awareness. Mm-hmm. Might be when you're taking a shower. It might be during that practice. It comes in when you let go a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Definitely. Like the most inconvenient time when you don't have a paper and pen.
Yeah, you don't have a pen, you don't have your phone. You're like,
damn it. Okay, gotta remember.
Please remember.
That's so true. I love that you have that class. That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
So how do you help people work with sankalpa or discover? So you have a class for that.
I have a class, and right now too, so I just started, the first week was last week. I just started to do a 7-week course about yoga nidra and creativity. So blending my two passions in one. And we're discovering and working through our stagnancy, our blocks, getting creative. And then of course with yoga nidra and sankalpa and how we could work with that consistently over time. So we do a lot of meditation, a lot of drawing. Even if I don't draw, it could be colors, shapes, words. Everyone is an artist. Like whether you consider yourself one or not, creativity is innate in all of us. So just allowing yourself to rediscover that part of yourself before you were told to like focus on your career when you were young and like put that away. Like don't do that.
Yeah.
So it's been really magical so far. So I will do that again, definitely like twice a year. And then I teach yoga nidra every 2 weeks on Mondays. Mm-hmm. And then I have one class up on my website if people just want to practice on their own.
Yeah. Oh, so anytime they can just
they can just purchase it, and then once you purchase it, it's yours forever. You just download it.
Yay!
Yeah,
what a nice gift.
Yeah,
give yourself the gift.
Yeah, 1,000,000%.
And then the one other thing about sankalpa is that, in my experience, there are many different yoga nidras where you don't have sankalpa at all. If it's something that is intimidating to you, you're not ready to work with, you just want deep-seated relaxation, you can have a nidra practice without it.
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that true for you? But you just said yes.
Yeah. And, I think so too. And if somebody's teaching you one where they say connect to your sankalpa and like you don't want to, or you're just wanting relaxation, just keep breathing and keep resting. Mm-hmm. It's not something that you should feel pressured or where you have to like exert effort to do.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the antithesis.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And speaking of relaxation, I think it's important. So yoga nidra, in my experience, this is how I explain it. It's basically like lying down on your back in shavasana for a long guided meditation. And because you're there for maybe 20 minutes for a short, that would be a short nidra, in my opinion.
Mine are always like 45 to an hour.
See? Yeah. Yeah. So short, 20 minutes.
One of these.
Yeah. Can you see this? This
I have
amazing
like a
cushion.
full-on like day bed cushion with like 3 blankets. You always want to support your head.
Yes.
Because if your head isn't supported, it's going to like call you out the whole time. And then that's where you're going to be for an hour.
Yeah. In the back of your head going, ow.
Yeah.
Ow, ow.
You don't want that.
Yeah. So Allie's got a great setup here, but piles of blankets. You can even do it in your bed.
Yeah. Your bed, your couch.
Wherever.
All the blankets, all the pillows.
But the point is that it's a supported practice. So you don't feel like you have to lie down on a hard floor, and don't be a martyr about it, okay?
Yeah. Yeah. You're good.
So talk to me. Let's go towards asana. Your style of teaching, where you draw inspiration from. I'm going to stop there because I could keep asking you.
Yeah.
I'll let you go.
Oh, God. Let's see. So that's a really good question. So I used to teach, so I have my 200 hour, my 300 hour from Michelle Lowe at the Yoga Space in Portland, who is rooted in Ashtanga, the Ashtanga lineage. So my practice and my teachings always used to stem from that. But then I was missing like the creativity of getting out of like the structure of like a primary series, even though I would just use it as like a foundation and kind of branch from that. And I rarely teach like a vinyasa class anymore. I mostly teach morning flows or flow and restore. So instead of building up to a peak pose, it's a little more my style, which is I'm not really a planner. So I'm more like, and of course I plan classes sometimes, but I'm more intuitive. So I like to like show up to my mat and say, how am I feeling today? How can I read the energy even just through Zoom? Like how are people feeling? And even that, it's like I like to gain inspiration from just little movements in the body. Like sometimes it's all about the arms or shaking, or it's not always yoga asana. It's always like a blend of things. Because I think when I used to teach vinyasa, and I used to love it, but always trying to plan to a peak pose would make me nervous. Because I was like, well, I don't know if I could fit in everything that like to warm up everyone, and I'm not a planner. So I would be like before teaching and then it would be fine, but like the build up to maybe not get everything in was like, I don't know, I'm more of an intuitive flow person. So when I can show up and just focus on, more movement, more meditation, less of, I like building more to peak, what do you call it? Peak transitions, or like a peak flow instead of a peak pose, if that makes sense. Yeah. So more like ladder flows, or it's not always going to be like, here, I'm going to teach you how to do crow. It's like, no, we're going to link some poses with breath, more about that. So less about what the pose less about what the pose looks like, more about how it feels. Yeah. Is where I'm at.
Yeah. I say that all the time. I think I said that this morning.
Literally, all the time. I'm like, who cares what it looks like? Like, just be in your body. Yeah. And, which is all wobbles welcome all the time.
Yeah. And that's why we do this practice, so that we can be firmly seated in our bodies. In my mind, it's a preparation for meditation, for not just being on your mat, but stepping off of your mat and going out into the world and being able to be your best self with the people that you love, with the people that drive you crazy.
Yeah, that's the test.
And sometimes those are one and the same person.
Pretty standard.
Yeah, that's always a really good bellwether for how your practice is going, is how you show up in moments of extreme stimuli, whether it be good or bad.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Definitely. And asana was always just that way, like a preparation for meditation, right? So I always think that's an important piece, is to have both.
Yeah, for sure. Otherwise, we're doing all this work and then we're missing out on the
rest.
The benefit of the practice is to be able to sit in meditation. That's where I feel like that's where the real juice is.
Same. And I'm a Taurus too, so I'm like, if I could just nap and rest all day, that's my sweet spot.
That sounds really nice.
Yeah.
And you're sitting on this cushion.
Especially down here.
In this beautiful room. It's so soothing.
Oh, thank you.
We have like our little diffuser going on in the background. Which you can't see, but I can smell it.
She can smell it.
What's in our diffuser?
It's like a Zen blend.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't really know, but I'll show you later.
It's very Zen smelling.
I'm glad.
What are you reading right now? What's inspiring you in terms of what you're reading? I'm seeing these books all over the place. So in the background, there's a bookshelf behind me, to the other side of me.
This book I've clearly read, and if you can see all my Post-its. This is like, I don't know, maybe 8 years old at this point, and I keep it on my nightstand or down here. It's called Zen and the Art of Happiness. Chris Prentice, I think. I always have a lot of Mark Nepo books too for inspiration. The one that I gave you to borrow is my favorite.
I can't remember what it's called.
It's something about where like the earth and sky meet, or the sun and something. It's amazing, and I'm mad that I can't remember the name of it right now.
I should have brought it to you.
Favorite.
Okay, I will bring it to you, and I'll take a picture.
Zen and the Art of Happiness is always something I just love to just flip through. Like I can open up a page and just read something and feel like instantly at peace. So when you asked me words of wisdom I live by, I always come back to this book because it's something that I do routinely go back to, and clearly for the past like 8 years. And it's always about how we can start within. So favorite quote, the true source of happiness is within each of us. And it's so simple, but it's so true because it starts here. And that's my course is called Seek Within, like teaching people that like there is an inner sanctuary here, and how instead of searching for answers outside of ourselves, how can we have the tools on hand all the time to at least start to look inward a little bit more often. And then same with this Inward book by Young Pueblo. Have you ever heard of him?
No, but I immediately looked at this when I walked in the room. I was like, what is that?
It is, yeah, like the most amazing book too. And this kind of goes along the same line as that last quote. When chaos is all around you, the wisest choice is to create peace within you. Your peace shines outward and supports the creation of a new harmony. And it is. It's like you get that inner alignment, and then it starts to ripple outward into the external. And you start to, people feel that light, right? Like they feel that from you, and it starts to create little ripples out into the world. So I really just love starting with, it all starts here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's such an important thing to bring up, to talk about, to kind of dissect, because at least for me, that's been the hardest lesson. It's something that I know intellectually.
Sure.
Right? And I'm always like, oh, but you have to learn how to validate yourself. Intrinsic value has to start here. And yet, if I were to take a bird's eye view of myself throughout the day, I'm doing all of these things seeking extrinsic validation.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So what are some, I think this is a great tool, like reading these poems, having your practice, but how does that practice show up in your life? What does it look like for you?
Yeah, a lot of the times, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, is I'm so addicted to social media, which I'm working towards, but again, on a much more real level, like how much am I really? And that's like where right?
I'm laughing at myself, like I'm so empathizing.
Yeah, right? I'm like, whatever. So it's always this like mindless scroll of comparing myself to other people where I have to stop and just say like, no, I have to leave my phone out of the room and go do something else or focus on myself. Like for the longest time, I feel like this past year, like 2020, such a hard year for everyone. Like truly trying to plan a wedding here too. So forget it. But it's been a year of meeting myself. What I feel like is for the first time. Because like even when I was younger, I would always just do what someone else was doing. Like, oh, their favorite color is yellow. That sounds cool. That's my favorite color. Like something so simple, but it was always like what I thought someone else was doing was way better than what my thoughts were. So I'm slowly starting to question more things. I'm like, oh, what do I think about that? What do I actually think about that? So that self-inquiry has been, just monumental, I think, in my growth of just being like, hey, what do I like? What's actually serving me? What isn't? Is this bringing me joy, or do I feel like not good after scrolling mindlessly on somebody's account that I don't even know?
Yeah.
So for me, a lot of the tools are just simply noticing and becoming aware, and then actually taking action to step back away from whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
Which is harder than it sounds, and it's super simple. It's just awareness.
Yeah.
It's just dropping into the moment instead of being all consumed. Yeah. So something simple like just awareness is in my toolbox now.
No, you're right. I think that practice of being able to, here's the hardest part truly, is the pause of, whoa, catching myself in this, okay, scrolling through social media, somebody else's account. Oh, they're way prettier. Oh, that outfit's cute. Oh my God, they probably make $1 million. Catching yourself in that scroll and checking in with yourself. How do you feel?
Yeah.
Like, does that make me feel good?
Yeah.
Am I feeling really good about myself?
And exactly. And like consciously making the choice to stop is the hardest part.
Exactly.
But it's just like meditation. It's like when you are, it's okay when your mind runs off, right? Like that's what our mind's job is, to think. So we can think it and just continue. But it's always that coming back coming back to the present moment, tethering your awareness back here. So even just in your daily life, like how can you bring that awareness in more often? And we're not perfect, but it's a practice.
And the point is not to be perfect either,
Exactly.
right? The point is to make a connection with yourself and to love yourself and have some compassion when you
extend all the compassion to yourself, just like you do to your dog. Like that was another thing. I was like, talk to yourself how you talk to your puppy. You're perfect. You're beautiful. Oh my God, I love you so much.
Your puppy makes a mess. You're okay, we'll
it's
clean
okay.
it up.
No problem.
Yeah.
So that was a big lesson for me too. Even just over the past couple months, I'm like, how would it shift if you talk to yourself the way you talk to Tango? Mic drop.
Yeah.
Such a difference in my day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Silly, but it works.
No, it's not silly. That's it's accessible. It's something that like you really actually get to practice in your daily life right now.
Everything's a teacher.
And Tango is such a good reminder.
Yeah.
You got him when he was like 3
months. Yeah.
And now he's 6?
10 months.
Oh, 10 months.
Yeah.
And this dog he's a puppy.
He's a puppy.
But he's what, like 75 pounds?
He's 60 pounds, but he's big.
60,
He's big though. Like he's
tall.
a little tank. He's tall. He's very lanky, but he's sweet.
And you rescued him?
We rescued him from Texas. They drove him. We couldn't find any Oregon rescues because it was during last year and everybody was rescuing and adopting puppies because we were all home all the time. Lifesaver having a pet during COVID, during the pandemic. But yeah, we rescued him and I just saw his face. He's a black lab mix. He's so sweet. And I was like, him, mine, take my money. I don't care. Just give me the dog. I need him.
I didn't even think about that, adopting out of state or rescuing out of state. What was that process like? Was it easy?
It was really easy. I've been looking on Pet Finder arguably for a very long time.
Okay.
And my fiance was very against having a dog, or at least we both love dogs, but he was like, well, we need a house, we need a yard. 1 month of having the house, I was like, it's time. We're getting a dog. We're getting a dog. Yeah. So we both grew up with labs, and I saw him and was just like my heart stopped. I was like, I need him. And it's so hard to not have that physical connection with, normally when you rescue, it's like, whichever you kind of vibe off their energy, or they fall asleep in your lap, or they come right to you, or there's like something that like pulls you towards them. And even through a screen, I was like, his eyes. I was like, this dog is mine. Like this dog. So we obviously didn't know what we were going to get, how he was going to be. And he just melted in our arms, and he goes skiing with us. And he loves to hike. He loves nature, but he also is a 60-pound lap dog and loves to nap with me all the time. It's the perfect balance. So somehow we just lucked out with our dream dog.
How does it go skiing? Do you put
okay, here we go. So I should be okay. So my fiance hikes up Mount Hood with his skis, skinning, and then skis down. So Tango is off leash and he's just chasing him on the skis, and then they come back down. He doesn't summit with the dog because that would be dangerous. And there's a lot more technical things, but they go up a lot. They do a couple miles, and then they ski down, and he's just booking
He's
it
just
down.
running.
Yep, he's just running.
I'm picturing little tiny dogs.
That would be amazing.
I mean, you've seen crazier things than that, right?
That would be, yeah. I see people skiing in Portland during the snowstorm.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, he's super outdoorsy and fun.
That's perfect.
Yeah,
what a nice
great.
compliment to your family.
It's really sweet.
Well, I want to be mindful of your time, and you kind of already answered that question that I like to ask last, which is, what are some words of wisdom you love by, unless you want to amend or add to it at all. But I could ask you a different last question.
Words of wisdom. I mean, just encapsulating all of that is just seek in, look within more often. Yeah,
And there's Tango.
He's like, yeah, Mom. Yeah.
That was the perfect punctuation.
He was like, yeah.
I wonder if the audio picked that up.
I know, that would be funny. If it isn't, we can cut it.
Keep shouting.
I know.
It's like you're singing a song.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, well, I'll ask you one more question because I do love that, and I feel like you really practice what you're preaching there. I can see it in all the things you're reading and sharing with people, so thank you.
Yes.
Then, Okay, my last question is, it's a kind of like a quote from one of my favorite poets, Mary Oliver. You know I love her.
I know.
And the question is, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, I feel like I'm on my way, and I'm living it in a way now, which feels really special. And I just want to create a community to explore creativity, yoga nidra, movement, all of these healing practices together, right? I just want to bring people together. It's all about creating community and sharing. So
and you are doing that.
Doing it. We're doing it. Yeah,
doing it. She's 29 and she is living her best life.
Trying. Yeah, we're doing it. And I'm taking away the try. I'm like, no, you're doing it.
Yeah.
Period. Exclamation point.
That'd be a good song called that.
Living it. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Allie.
Thank
you for opening up your home to us and sharing your
Yes.
beautiful art.
Thank you.
Yeah,
This
thank
is
you.
special.